Okay, guys, this is week 99, almost to 100. That's right, getting there. And then 104 will be the end of year or season 2. So goodbye to the VHS Voyage forever, or at least for a very long time. And then it will be the year of Hammer, or Hammer Time, or whatever we're going to call it. But that will be me covering like 58 Hammer movies within 52 weeks. There'll be a master list so you guys can follow around if you'd like. A couple will be double features, but besides that, mostly be one Hammer movie a week. We're going to go in chronological order. So everything won't be covered. I've covered some Hammer movies already, and some are borderline horror sci-fi, so a lot of that stuff won't be covered, but there'll be a list so you guys can follow around. All the Frankensteins will be covered, except Tales of Frankenstein, which is like a TV deal Hammer did, and all the Draculas be covered, the Mummy, stuff like that. So if you want to hop on board and watch those, they'll be coming at week 105 will be the debut of those. I guess season 3, year 3, whatever you want to call it. I want to also say R.I.P. to Joe Pilato. Oh, let me not hop into that just yet. I want to mention there's a tier that I added that is like a genre wars. I called it label wars, and that's basically like pick a Vinegar Syndrome or Blue Underground, one of the big labels, because I have most of their titles to review and a lot of the back catalog I haven't covered, so if you guys want to do that. But I want to mention rest in peace Joe Pilato from Day of the Dead. He played Rhodes. Day of the Dead's my favorite movie. He turned in a magnificent performance in that. He also pops up in Dawn of the Dead in the extended version, and Effects, and Wishmaster, and Parasites. He was a pretty good actor. It was great to meet him at Cinema Wasteland, but Captain Rhodes was one of the best characters ever, one of the most quotable characters of all time. Have you lost your mind? No, ma'am. Have you? I just told you I was willing to kill you if you didn't get back in your chair. You didn't get back in your chair. Love the whole movie. Love his dialogue. Great stuff. And also R.I.P. Larry Cohen. Larry Cohen was one of the best guerrilla, they call him like the best guerrilla filmmaker of all time. He was an independent giant. He made some really cool movies. The It's Alive films, The Stuff, Q, The Winged Serpent. I enjoyed all those movies. A bunch of blaxploitation movies. He was a writer on stuff like Maniac Cop. So he had a long, prolific career. And anybody that liked horror movies or exploitation movies or just crazy off-the-wall stuff or cool writing owes a great deal to Larry Cohen, R.I.P. as well. And that's why I decided to start this show off with a review of one of his movies. And the funny thing is, it was like his only horror movie, or straight horror movie, that I hadn't seen. And it's a Blue Underground release. It is God Told Me To, obviously directed by Larry Cohen. And the star is a guy I'm not too familiar with. He appears to be, he was in a lot of stuff, Honeymoon Killers, but I didn't recognize him right off the bat. And I loved Larry Cohen because he always cast these guys that aren't really typical leads. This guy, he's a good actor, but it's like he's the only guy that's going to cast Michael Moriarty as a lead because he's just such an odd actor, odd character. So his leads are always kind of a little bit different, and I dig that. Besides Fred Williamson, who's a typical leading man, but those are blaxploitation movies. Not typical, but he's a leading man material. Not saying these guys aren't. I just like the untypical leading man, and Larry Cohen wasn't afraid to cast those kind of guys. So yeah. God Told Me To. This is a crazy, weird, bizarre movie, and I must admit, by the first half, I was not digging the entire movie. I was like, man, I do not know where this is going, which can be good or bad. It's insane, it's weird, it's different, which are usually all compliments for me, but it was hard to understand what the movie was going for. And as it went on further and further, I realized, at the end, I was like, this is so crazy and so weird, and it went in this crazy direction that I didn't expect. I actually pretty much dug it. We have this cop who kind of feels out of place. He's kind of a strange guy, doesn't really feel right. And all these murders start happening around New York City where all the people who committed the crime say, God told me to. They all seem random. They all seem like they have, something guiding their weapons or guiding their methods because they're doing a particularly good job in killing a lot of people that a lot of people really couldn't do, normally do. Like the first guy is on a rooftop shooting or a water tower shooting people down with a crummy rifle, and he manages to kill 15, 16 people. All these shots were stolen, which is pretty cool. Guerrilla style, which Cohen talks about in the King Cohen documentary and on this disc as well. But as soon the detective starts to dig deeper and he starts to realize a pattern that all these people are saying God told me to, and he's going to try to figure out why these crimes are happening and who's behind it. And all signs point to this kind of androgynous, weird, strange person with long blonde hair that kind of glows and no one can get a good look at their face, played by the legendary character actor Richard Lynch, known for playing baddies in such classics as Puppet Master 3, Invasion USA, The 7-Ups, and some newer films. He pops up in Laid the Rest, Rob Zombie's Halloween. I'm a big Richard Lynch fan. Cut and Run's another one. So it was great seeing him pop up in a Larry Cohen movie and turn in a very bizarre and crazy performance. But that's not necessarily all about this movie. It's about him. But so he starts to dig deeper and he realizes that this doesn't just pertain to these murders. This doesn't just pertain to religious or superstitious aspects. There's something even out of this world involved. And that's when things get really weird. He starts to visit these people that seem to say they were abducted by aliens, including, what is her name? Sylvia Sidney, I believe is her name. She's a classic actress. I remember her most from popping up in Beetlejuice as a great role in that movie. But that whole scene is very dramatic and very touching. And he learns something about himself and she learns some other things, and that's another thing that really pushed it. I was like, man, the acting right here is just top notch and very impressive, and I love that scene. But the lead character is an odd one, and he's supposed to be. He's kind of distant, weird, and he has a wife, but he has a girlfriend, and they both are infatuated. He's just a strange character, and the more it goes on, the more you realize that he's not exactly this true force of good, really, but he is the counter to bad in this. He's just a strange character. And of course Richard Lynch and him are going to meet up, and I don't want to spoil too much, but it kind of has a Scanners thing going on to me. But the ending's weird. The whole plot of the movie's weird. How could a movie tackle such weird things and end up there? And Cohen always said, if you write yourself in a corner, write yourself out, you're in charge. And that's what this movie feels like. But it kept going to these wild, weird directions, and it's a super strange movie. There's some features on here. Interview with the lead actor I like seeing. He talked about the role, and the end of this movie's great. It's one of those rare times when an actor or actor can look at the camera and look directly in the lens and just deliver the right line, and it's perfect. But a weird, bizarre movie that's going to require another watch to appreciate, I think. I'm coming right in the middle, a little above average. I think it's above average, don't get me wrong, but I think with more viewings, I think I'll enjoy it more. It also has Andy Kaufman in it, playing a crazy person, so playing himself. Yeah, but God told me to. It looks great in this Blu-ray release, so check it out. It's a weird movie, and if you aren't familiar with Cohen stuff, I haven't seen everything, of course. You really ought to check out stuff like Q the Winged Serpent and the stuff, and of course It's Alive.
On December 25th, 1953, a child is born, a virgin birth. Tomorrow, all civilization will tremble under his almighty power. He must be obeyed.
Who were Moses and Jesus, really? Accept me, no questions. Sacrifices to your God are nothing new.
Are you going to tell me all those people are meant to die?
Why did you attack all those people? God told me to.
God told me to.
Okay, guys, the next one is from Mill Creek Entertainment, and this is a bizarre movie. I'd heard about it for years. It's an early 80s movie. It is Neighbors with John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd. And this is one of these deals that I had heard people talk about, and it always got negative reviews, and they say it's a mess, it doesn't work, especially on 80s all over. But I could see this movie being a cult movie. Is it dark comedy in some ways? Is it one of these movies where middle-aged, kind of white male working in a middle-class environment has this world upturned and he discovers something about himself? It's got that thing going on it too. But Neighbors, I don't know what to say about this movie. Yes, it is kind of a mess. It's super weird, but it never is boring. During this whole movie I'm watching it, I'm like, what is going on here? What are these jokes aren't all landing, but are they supposed to be that funny? It's just kind of awkward and strange and weird, but I'm never bored. I'm never dissatisfied with what I'm seeing. John Belushi is kind of an uptight guy. He lives in this little cul-de-sac that has two houses in it, and there's this weird bog next door, and Dan Aykroyd and his wife decide to move in, his nymphomaniac wife, and Dan Aykroyd seems to have this Nazi thing going on. He has ultra blonde hair. He has this plane with the iron crosses on it, and he has these weird blue contacts in. Not a good look for Dan Aykroyd. So him and his wife disrupt everything about Belushi. They invite him over, and everybody seems to like these two, Dan Aykroyd and his wife. Kathy Morarati, plays his wife. Except Belushi. He has all these problems, and they have some typical hijinks where they broke my, vases or vases I kept in a basement. I've been collecting these weird jars for years. Stuff like that, typical stuff. And the wife's always constantly coming on to Belushi. And it's a weird role for Belushi. Like, I've heard people say that the roles were switched last minute, and I can see that, but Dan Aykroyd does play an obnoxious jerk very well. If you don't believe me, go see Great Outdoors. He's perfect in that movie. But this one, it's just so weird, and the whole thing, it doesn't really necessarily work, and I don't know whose side I'm on. Belushi is despicable. Aykroyd and his wife are terrible people, too. Everybody in this movie is just kind of bad. Like, they're not really good people, but you want to watch them. They're entertaining to a certain, certain way, and the movie is just a weird deal of people being mean to each other at times, and then somehow being friends at the end of it. I don't know. It looks really good. I'm glad they cleaned it up, and the trailer's super bizarre. But man, this is a weird one. And it's definitely a cult item that was kind of, always despised and hated. And I can see why, but I don't really hate it nor love it. But it's one of these movies that I think that if I saw young, I would have an attachment to. But I don't, because I didn't. But I don't hate it, and I would like to revisit with somebody and just watch their face as they try to decipher exactly what this movie is about. Is it about breaking constraints of like going to, the fitting into society? I don't know. I really don't know.
In a not-too-distant suburb, on a very quiet street.
Well, I guess it's about that time.
Need any help?
Earl Keese, a reserved, hard-working homeowner, sits calmly waiting for his dinner. Little does he know, he's about to meet the neighbors.
Enid! Someone's moving into the Warren place!
So?
Funny time to be moving.
Ramona.
Hello. What can I do for you?
The question is, what do you want in return? Is your wife making dinner?
Would you like to join us?
You go ask your wife if it's okay.
Oh, it's no problem, really.
Don't argue with me, Earl.
And Vic.
So, what do you say, neighbor? Welcome to the end of the road, I guess.
It's a great house.
Thank you.
I mean mine. Well, what's on the menu, pal? I'm starved.
And somehow, his life will never be the same.
Who goes there?
Hi, Earl Keese.
Columbia Pictures presents John Belushi,
I swear to God, Enid, we may have to move. They're very strange people.
Dan Aykroyd,
I'm tasty.
They come in 4 flavors.
What a great idea.
Yeah.
Kathy Moriarty,
Your left ball in the corner pocket.
in Neighbors. Lock the doors.
Hey, Earl. You go to hell. You're not getting back in here.
They're coming your way.
Okay, this next one here, I believe is an Aussie movie. It is Dark Sister from Wild Eye. And yeah, I put this in, I start watching. I was like, bright, vibrant colors. I was like, yes. J and B. Somebody's reading an Edgar Wallace yellow-backed book. I was like, this is very Italian-inspired, very Giallo-inspired, but more so Dario Argento in certain ways. This is a super weird movie. It has the art with the horror involved, which reminded me of Dario, and the whole Giallo like color scheme. Even at times, though, the colors are like unprovoked. They're just there, which reminded me more of a Dario thing. So this story involves this artist. She's painting these pictures. She's painting her dreams or nightmares, and they're like murder scenes. Kind of reminds me of Art School Confidential and Cullibus in ways too, with the art murder stuff going on. And these become real, or they seem to be real murders of strangers she doesn't know, and these people are being murdered by people that loved ones. So this detective gets involved, and he's kind of spending time with his mother. He's always around his mother, which is a very Giallo thing. See Iguana with the tongue of fire, if you don't believe me, but which is surprisingly coming up in these video. But that kind of thing is weird, and it has these Italian tropes for sure, and it does feel like the story kind of goes and misses some beats here and there, and you're supposed to discover the kind of stuff for yourself. There's that going for it. The color scheme I like that they put the J and B in there. That's perfect. I like that they had the Edgar Wallace shout out in there. That kind of stuff is just nice little touches that I enjoyed. I know these people are real fans of Giallos. Like I said, I enjoyed the color, and some of the murders are pretty decent. The music's solid. The acting's not horrible. As the movie progresses, it gets weirder and weirder, and it starts to unfold these different storylines, and it feels more like a science gone crazy horror movie than a Giallo, and it feels long. It runs in an hour and 36 minutes. It feels longer than that, and I respect these guys for going out and making something like this. It's an ambitious horror movie, and their mindset is in the right place. But not everything exactly works for me here. I think that it never really caught me. Like it kind of bored me at certain times where I started to lose interest in the movie. That could be my attention span. It could be the movie. But for the most part, I think it's a good attempt. And I don't want to be like harsh on the movie, because I think that, like I said, a lot of the good stuff is there and a lot of the inspiration are there, and it does feel like its own deal, but it definitely feels like two movies ran together, a Giallo and a Science Gone Wrong movie, but maybe so more of these supernatural elements and this precognitive, I wouldn't even say that, like psychic abilities and stuff like that. It starts to kind of lose it and get confusing, and even though you know what's going on, it just starts to be too much at the very end of the movie, and you're like, this is just getting... I know saying ridiculous for a horror movie is kind of asinine, but it gets ridiculous, and it starts to lose me big time at the end of the movie. But I do think it's worth checking out, maybe if you enjoyed the trailer. And I wish it was a Blu-ray, because I think this would look better. I think it would pop out more on Blu-ray. But there is a commentary by the director, so if this on the release. So if you like the movie, you might want to check that commentary out. I do think it might be worth looking into if you want to check this one out, but I'm not sure if I will revisit anytime soon.
Archetypal imagery is the language of dreams. It is how they communicate with us. So this is the sun.
I think so.
It wasn't raining.
What does it matter if it's raining?
Everything matters.
It didn't just feel like I was watching her die. It felt like I killed her.
You are making progress. Trust me.
Your style certainly developed.
They're dreams.
What the hell is going on, Cassie?
Today I met someone, and then I saw him in my vision. Each one of these is a real person.
I didn't know you were watching us all this time. The game is easy. All you have to do is catch me. Cry, baby, bunting. Daddy's gonna hunting.
Everything's going to be all right.
We can catch whoever's doing this. How do you believe me?
I always did.
Okay, the next one is from Arrow Video, and it is The Iguana with the Tongue of Fire by Ricardo Fredo. I've seen a couple of his movies, The Possession, and he worked with Mario Bava early on in his career, and they kind of co-directed some stuff. Celtique, I believe he worked on. But The Iguana with the Tongue of Fire, what a great name. I've always heard the name. As a giallo, you know, it's one of the ones that stands out. It stars Luigi Pistelli, who I love from some Sergio Leone movies, some Sergio Corbucci movies, some Sergio Martino movies, some Mario Bava movies. He's in lots of stuff. He's a very familiar face. He plays a detective who lives with his mother, as I previously stated, and his daughter. And he's kind of a strange character. He's trying to figure out this case that involves this rich man had a woman brutally murdered and put in the back of his, his car, and nobody knows how she got there, although there's obviously some suspects. And what happens is there starts to be a killer going around killing anybody involved with the case and involved with that family. Sometimes they dump acid on their face and slice their throat. The effects are not the best effects, everybody will tell you that. There's some hokey effects in here, but they are kind of fun, especially the thing throwing acid on somebody's face doesn't typically happen in a giallo movie, and then cutting their throat. To be honest, this one tells you who the killer is, but you still don't know who the killer is, if that makes any sense. I was like, so who is that? Who is that? And it's funny, one of the characters says it, and then you're still like, I don't know who that is. And at the end twist, you're like, oh. So they do a lot of this setups, and they're kind of like shoehorned in to get the payoffs in this one, if that makes any sense. But it does kind of hurt the movie to a certain extent, but it's not awful. The score is solid like these all are. It takes place in Ireland, so it adds some nice production value and some nice scenery, which you don't typically see in all giallo. I mean, they always have a nice location, but Ireland I don't think I've seen. And the commentary would suggest to two experts on there that there hasn't been another giallo in Ireland. I don't know if it's a fact, but they seem to think so. The commentary is pretty fun. Those guys have some laughs at the expense of the movie, but they seem to genuinely enjoy it. The twist at the end of the movie is batshit. It feels dirty and high class, like dirty underlayer in a high class, like a giallo should have. There's definitely some, not incestuous, but some homosexual things going on in the film back in the day, and that's how that kind of like in the 70s, they're like, homosexuality, oh my god. But yeah. The acting for a movie like this is pretty decent. Who's the Lassiter? She's in here. She gets nude. She's in a lot of movies. She's in tons and tons of stuff. Dagmar, yeah, she's in a lot of movies. Giallos and other horror films and such. But Luigi Pistelli and the relationship between his daughter and his mom, that whole stuff is really comic and really fun, and I kind of enjoyed it. I don't want to say all those setups are shoehorned in, but just one of them at the end involving glasses kind of is shoehorned in there. But I actually kind of really enjoyed this one to a certain extent, like I said. And at first I was like, wait, what the hell happened? What's going on? And this is definitely one of those ones where you should probably see it a second time. This one requires 2 viewings, I think, to grasp 100%. And you're like, okay, because there's a couple characters that look similar, and they come in, and you're like, who the hell's that guy? Why is he here? And there's a couple characters in here, you're like, that character is completely pointless. That's a padding body count character. Or maybe a red herring character that's like, I could be the killer. Oh, no, he's dead. Another body. Off screen sometimes too, so it's like, that's just pointless. That's just padding the runtime, padding the body count, and a red herring. I understand, like I said, but it's not the best giallo I've ever seen. It has some very memorable scenes in it though, and it's nice seeing Luigi Pistelli in that kind of weird role. And it's something so Italian about a middle-aged man still living with his mother and his daughter, and he doesn't have his wife and whatnot. And there's this weird flashback of police brutality, which is fun also because Luigi Pistelli would go play in one of the Fernando Del Leo movies, almost sympathetic cop later on. So he's playing a not against type. I'd say against type in that one, because he always kind of plays a brutal guy. See Bay of Blood or Your Vice is Locked Room and Only I Have the Key. So he plays a priest in Good, Bad, and Ugly. So he's going against type sometimes. He always plays this ultra-violent guy or this, good-natured guy. But on here, there's a appreciation for the composer, which is nice. That guy knows a lot. I've seen him before pop up in these things. The commentary's fun, like I said. And there's a guy who talks about the movie, and he starts to admit that these threads don't always come together in the movie. And I was like, thank you. I thought I was just stupid for a second, but he understands that this movie doesn't work 100% either, but it's still enjoyable, it's still good, and there's some other interviews with people that actually worked on the movie as well. So that is the Iguana with the Tongue of Fire.
This murderer too is certainly living amongst us, perhaps under our very eyes. The Iguana is clever at disguising himself. The only difference is that the Iguana, though horrible, is harmless, while our murderer is probably pleasant to look at, but he cuts throats and uses vitriol. It's his tongue of fire, you might say. make...
Don't try to raise one finger to me.
Okay, the next one is from Arrow Academy, and it is from 1944, and it is The Phantom Lady. Yes. It's nice to see some 40s movies, because I said, huge weak spot when it comes to 40s movies, especially when they're not horror. This is kind of like a film noir mystery. It has this story about a man who is, you think, wrongfully accused of killing his wife. That's the setup. He is out seeing a movie. Well, he is wrongfully accused. You kind of know right off the bat. He's out seeing a play, and he meets this mysterious woman. He says, will you go to this play with me? I have an extra ticket. I've had an argument with my wife, yada, yada. They don't know much about each other. Doesn't get a name. Goes and sees the play. Comes home. His wife's murdered. All the cops think he did it, and everybody thinks he does it, except this one woman who decides to stick her neck out. They work together, stick her neck out for him, and decide to solve the case, which is cool because it's 1944, and we have this woman going around trying to solve the case and taking action to her own hands. What I like about this movie is we have some other characters come in. His best friend, right off the bat, you know who is bad, who is good in this movie. There's a cop who I like seeing say, you know what, I was wrong on this one. I think you're right. I'm going to help you get this guy's name cleared. That's refreshing in a movie like this, because usually either, you know, the cop's always super good or super bad. It's nice to see a cop make a mistake and kind of try to pay for it and do the right thing, which I really enjoyed seeing, and all the characters are solid. The lead actress in here, she's gorgeous. I enjoy her. And the guy, you know, this also kind of reminds me of Laura, which I did last week. We have somebody trying to help somebody or solve something and then falling in love with the person they're trying to help or trying to solve the murder of. So there's that going on. That's pretty kind of a typical thing. But the bad guy in this movie, his psychosis is great. And when he starts to, people start to kind of like poo-poo the bad guy when they don't know he's the bad guy necessarily around him, he starts to kind of get very uncomfortable, and he doesn't like the idea of him being crazy or a psychopath. And I like that. He turns in a great performance, a unique performance. There's good suspense built with that character where you know who he is, but no one else knows for a fact around it. And are they getting closer to figuring out if he is that person and what his you know, his actions are going to be. So they do really good suspense like that. And I remember there being a couple tracking shots, which I thought were really nice in here, if I'm not mistaken. You know, watched a lot of movies in 1 week. So, but on here also it was really nice to see like 50 years of noir. They had it made in the 90s, had interviews with a bunch of people that talk about noir and newer noir, and it had a bunch of movies in there that I wanted to see. A couple I was familiar with. Dennis Hopper was in there talking, movie critics, and one of the movie critics, I think she talked on the Bound special features from Olive's Signature. So that was nice seeing her on there in this old documentary, 50 films of noir. What was it called? Dark and something like that. This documentary is great. It's I think it's about an hour or so, but there's lots of people on there, and if you're looking for like 90s noir, they go in depth about that at the time. So they talk about stuff like One False Move, which is a really good movie, and what Dennis Hopper directed movies. So you see all these movies that were inspired by the 40s noir movies. So that's really interesting. Nice release. Looks really good. I mean, a lot of these black and white movies, when they're cleaned up, they look magnificent, and this is no different. No complaints as I could think of on this one. There is a side story with this kind of drummer. That's really weird and kind of goes a little left to center for a while, and I'm just like, this definitely feels like it's part of it. You know, like these movies don't usually, you know, surprisingly date themselves as bad, I wouldn't say, but that part is dated and it's silly with the drummer, and he's like just smiling at drum, and I'm like, come on, man. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It's a pretty good movie.
Jack Marlowe, lover of beauty and women, tossed by violent emotions like a straw in a hurricane. Carol, as loyal in love, as relentless in hate as fate itself. Scott Henderson, accused of murder, and his only alibi, a mirage, a phantom lady. Inspector Burgess, who condemned to death a man he knew was innocent. Cliff, a hopped-up drummer who held the key to a crime. And Terry, who entered a man's life for one night, then vanished.
Give me a break. What's the difference whether my tie's okay or not?
It makes a great deal of difference, Mr. Henderson.
Yeah? Why?
Your wife was strangled with one of your ties.
But I'll get the murderer sooner or later. It's always simpler when they're insane.
You sure it isn't sour grapes, Inspector?
You ain't got nothing on me. Nothing.
Who bribed you?
Wait a minute.
Yes, you can't help it because you're mad, mad,
Hey guys, what's up? We're here to do a few reviews. The first one is the 1982 horror flick from Scream Shout Factory, recently released, Superstition. I got this early because I ordered direct from Shout Factory. I guess they're sending them out early again, which is pretty cool. But Superstition, I know that had it was out of print for a long time on DVD, so a lot of people always had a fondness of it, and they wanted to get a hold of it. Kind of a little obscure, basically in the DVD market. I had a copy back when Anchor Bay released it and watched it then, and I remember thinking it was okay. And rewatching it again, I'm thinking it's okay. This one, it's really cheesy and kind of cheap and stupid all in the same breath. We have it's kind of has some exploitation, like Exorcist elements to it, but it's a haunted house where this witch was kind of brutally murdered and thrown into this nearby lake, and the whole house is like desecrated and evil. But this priest and these couple priests want to fix it up and rent it out, renovate it to this family. The father is a drunk, and people start getting picked off by the witch. Basically just a dark little hand that sticks out with claws. That's the setup of the movie. The movie's characters are terrible. The acting's pretty bad, although there is some familiar faces in here. The mother's in a slew of stuff, and she's actually a pretty decent actress from what I remember usually. But this movie, it starts off with a punch. We have these kids who are trying to scare people in the house, and then they're brutally murdered. And I don't understand why the murders start there, because the priest takes a cross out of the lake, which is what lets the witch roam free during the day, and at first she was only killing at night or something like that, but then it amps up. This movie should just, it drove me nuts because all the characters are completely inept. The father, the priest, the cop, they're just dumb. They're just inept. They think and I saw this thing online floating around today that said, well, plot holes aren't when you get mad and call it plot holes when people aren't following logic. No, I just get mad because it's bullshit writing. It's bad writing. For example, this movie, I know I'm kind of jumping the gun here, but why don't you talk about it a little bit here?
Well, I have to confess that I wasn't quite paying that much attention to it. It kind of lost me for a little bit. I was watching the first half. I'm like, okay, it's like a Amityville horror kind of thing going on. And I'm like, all right, it's just some guys running around getting killed, and then they throw in the Spanish Inquisition, and no one ever expects the Spanish Inquisition.
Oh, that's Monty Python.
That's
right?
a Monty Python.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyways, what are we talking about this movie for?
Okay, all right. It jumps over the place. At first, people are being picked off by this witch that was killed there and thrown in this pond. They didn't do it right. They should have burned her. They drowned her. So now she kind of roams in between. There's also an old woman who knows a lot about it, living in a shack nearby, and she gives them the classic warnings, but every old person in this movie, for some reason, does that, I'm telling you that there is evil. I don't know, Donald Pleasance on steroids from Halloween. Just whacked out old people that are pulling from the 30s movies or something. I don't know. But the acting's pretty poor for the most part.
I feel like the family that moves in, I just don't remember them. I remember them, but I swear, it's you get 30 minutes of movie and then you cut to the next scene. It's we're a family of 5 moving into this house. I'm like, where are you coming from?
I don't know if this whole movie is like a big thing that everybody is inept in what they do, because the young priest is pretty inept. He is more concerned about girls in bathing suits than doing his job, and he never ever... He feels like a guy who's like, I got a nice cushy job as a priest. I don't really have to do anything.
Right.
And he's forced to confront this evil. And then we have this father who's a drunk, who's never done anything good for his family, and he never does. And at the very end, he tries to confront the evil, but no one ever successfully confronts anything because they're too stupid to do anything, and they never listen. They just... constantly are begging to be killed. And I'm not one of those people that's always like, man, I love watching annoying characters get killed. Sometimes, but when everybody's a moron, it's just not fun. The cop in here is okay to a certain extent, but for some reason, these people have already moved in the house. They're living there, and the cop and the priest seem to hang out around the house for 90% of the movie, even when they have no reason to.
Right.
And tons of people are disappearing and dying, yet no one really does anything about it. A cop disappears into the lake. They try to drain the lake. It doesn't work. They say, forget about it.
It's fine. He'll be fine. He'll float in the springtime.
This one scene that drove me absolutely nuts in here was the young son disappears. And the father's looking all over for the house for him. The priest come, the cop come, they're looking for him. And they say, well, did you look in the basement? Mind you, the basement is riddled with a bunch of like junk from years past and weird looking stuff, and an elevator shaft that doesn't work, which a man died in earlier. Nobody cared to look for him. Everybody's dying in this basement. It's creepy. And the father says, they say, did you go in the basement? Well, I called down for him. You moron. You drunk moron. If I was the cop, I would have slapped that third-rate Stuart Whitman actor. But the gore effects, in particular the first half, are really fun, especially the microwave, which makes no sense. And nothing does make sense. But they do have some decent kills in the beginning of the movie, and the body count's high. Unfortunately, you don't care what happens, and surprisingly, it's shot well. Like for a cheapy movie, there's some nice shots, there's some nice set decorations. It's just poorly acted and poorly written in its characters. Would you agree with that?
I would agree. Yeah,
and it's definitely low budget, but it's just so funny how inept everybody is. It's almost like they're always 6 steps behind in doing what they should be doing. Like for example, they decide to the cop realizes that there is a part of the basement that's boarded up. He says, well, it's got to be outside or something. Instead of knocking down this wall and going through, he goes out and digs around the backyard, finds a cellar door. He doesn't try to knock down the cellar door. He says, screw that. He goes back inside instead of trying to open the cellar door and knocks down that wall.
Right.
Why don't you just try to open the cellar door, break down the cellar door?
Yeah.
It's just stuff like that. Like this, I don't understand why any of these people are doing what they do. And it's a horror movie. I'm being overly critical on it, but it's very poorly written. And there's a couple points where I laughed out loud hysterically because the kills are very fun, and the kills are what keeps this movie going. Right. Especially the extra violent saw blade that doesn't stop moving.
Yeah,
and that's some typical possession stuff, but it looks pretty good. They cleaned it up pretty good for a cheap movie. And there's an interview with the lead actor in here, the young priest, and the director, who worked with Charles B. Pierce, which is interesting because Pierce did a lot of stuff like Talon Dreaded Sundown. Overall, it's a decent release. Doesn't have that many features on it. They cleaned it up pretty decent. The movie's nonsensical. It's just kind of a bad exorcist / haunted possession house movie with a lot of kills and it's definitely a flashback exorcist kind of ripoff. The acting's pretty poor, and I think this is a Canadian tax shelter movie. I wouldn't bet my life on it, but I would bet $5 just by watching it. That's what it feels like. But
yeah,
if it sounds like it's something up your alley, it's really cheesy, it's really silly. It's kind of fun. I'd say maybe. You?
Yeah, sure. Why not? I mean, you already own everything else.
If you're me, you already own everything else.
Yeah, just
go for it.
Go get it.
You could do worse.
Yeah.
All those stories about murders and ghosts. Haunted, they say. I'm scared.
Two kids were killed out there. One kid was gutted and slashed to death. The other microwaved.
There was a warning.
There are many houses on this foundation. All of them and their tenants come to bad ends.
And only
one man listened.
Well, when did this violence begin?
There was a legend.
We want justice! I will not die!
And only one man believed.
Am I too late? Has it already started?
There is a superstition, and will anyone survive? Superstition. The victims who died were the lucky ones. Superstition.
All right, guys. This next one was a Patreon pick by Matt Brown, and he picked a good one. I think this is a 2010-2011 movie. I had the Blu-ray for years, and I never watched it. And I knew everybody loved it. Everybody's talking about it. I was like, oh, man, I missed that boat. I just don't have time to watch it, so I'm glad somebody picked it. And it is We Need to Talk About Kevin. This is actually based on a book that I had not read. But this movie is told in a great structure. That's what I loved about the movie. It follows the story of a mother, a family kind of dealing with a son who is I never know if it's a sociopath or a psychopath. I would say psychopath because he is violent. But he acts more like a sociopath, right? I don't know.
I don't know the difference.
I don't know the difference, But regardless, it follows Tilda Swinton, Ezra Miller, and John C. Reilly. These are the three lead characters, and there's like a family of four. And it starts off, and it seems to be in modern times, and then we'll have flashbacks to like the very beginning, the birth of Kevin and John C. Reilly's relationship with Tilda Swinton starting, and then we'll go to what happened. So it kind of jumps around, almost like three storylines at first, until it kind of syncs up with the second one, and then we go back and forth. This movie has a lot of I would say metaphors, I guess, in there. With the blood, the paint, and everything like that.
Yeah, it's a metaphor. Yeah.
You definitely realize that Tilda Swinton has guilt on her conscience, and she's dealing with actions that happened previously, and it keeps you intrigued. If the story was just told straightforward, we've seen that before, and that's not as interesting. That there's the idea that something happened in the past, and they're going to keep unfolding it, and you see all these people interacting with her, obviously, and she's just a soulless person at this point.
Like the whole community hates her, and you never know why, and like it's not until like halfway through it's like it starts forming together, and like
and you know exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And you're pretty sure, but just even seeing it is great too. And this movie makes a lot of statements about being a mother, which I know absolutely nothing about. I think kind of that feeling that this thing is. I think this movie does the thing where she sees him in her at points, which bothers her. And you notice as it later goes on how he'll make his sandwich with all that jelly, Kevin. And she makes it at the end like that as well. But there's a point where somebody splashes red paint on her car and her house, and she's trying to clean it off throughout the rest of that storyline. Yeah. And it flashes back, and you realize that's like the blood on her hands that she can never get off. And I was like, that's really fun. I mean, it's obvious, but it's clever and it's obvious.
Oh, yeah. Well, because it opens with the paint on everything, and like, it'll show like a past scene, and like something kind of weird happens in that past scene, and then it cuts to the present day, and she's like washing her hands or like rubbing off the red paint. So it's like, okay.
And you see like Ezra Miller or Kevin grow up, and even as a kid, there's no connection between the mom, and there's a connection between the son and dad, John C. Reilly. But there's no connection between the mom. There's something off with the kid.
Right.
And you don't know, even really, if it's Tilda Swinton or the kid at first, but you realize that, this is her telling kind of her point of view, so maybe she was just not there for the kid or something wrong, but there just honestly seems something off with this kid. And there's points when I would have socked him. I would have slapped him. I would have punched him. I couldn't have contained myself. I would not make a great parent. But I love the relationship between John C. Reilly and Tilda Swinton in here. And John C. Reilly is just, he's one of those actors, like to me, like a John Goodman, like he's always good. I never dislike him. I always enjoy him, whether he's being funny, whether he's being like serious. It's just, he's such a solid actor. He's perfect.
I would say I've never seen him in a serious role. This was the first time, I think. Yeah, I'd never seen him.
And it's funny because he started off as a serious actor, like Casualties of War and Hoffa and stuff like that, and he kind of morphed into this comedic actor, which is really strange. And similar to John Goodman, who would be in serious, but he went back and forth, serious, comedic, and kind of a mixture of both. And those actors are probably some of the most talented, I think, in some aspects. But Tilda Swinton is excellent in this movie.
Oh, yeah, she's always excellent.
She's always excellent, you know. I was really impressed with the acting, and this movie had to have strong acting. Ezra Miller is a creep.
Oh,
he's
yeah,
a creep.
absolutely.
He's just an absolute creep, and he's so weird and so bizarre. And I like that this involves a violent thing, and I like how somebody does it. And Ezra Miller's not picked on. He doesn't seem bullied.
No, yeah.
And people always be like, well, these kids are bullied. That's why they do it. That's not always the case. Like the Columbine kids, like they said one of them wasn't ever bullied. He was just a prick. His whole life he was a prick.
Yeah.
It's not always the picked on kids that do this. A lot of those kids just go through a miserable existence sometimes, and sometimes kill themselves. I don't know, but it's not always the ones who lash out who are picked on.
And you never quite find out why he did the things that he did. Like it gets to the end, and even he, as a character, is like,
because he was off.
He's crazy. Yeah.
He's off. But it's just the way it unfolds and the way what she does, and it just seems very complicated, but very real at the same time. It's like about being a parent, like. It's my responsibility. I'm responsible for this thing. And everything horrible that happens to her, she doesn't fight it.
Right.
Because she feels like she deserves it. There's some funny moments in here as well. Some are just because it's so jaw-dropping, but when is it Jehovah's Witnesses that come to her door?
Yes, yeah.
Do you know where you're spending your afterlife? Yes, as a matter of fact, I do. That's a really fun scene. But just great movie. I was very impressed with it. Hard to top, really. Especially when you're kind of like... And I haven't read the book, so I can't compare it.
I remember when this movie came out, and I didn't see it when it came out either. This is the first time I'd ever seen it, and I thought that this movie was about something completely different. It's probably because of Tilda Swinton and the fact that she's creepy looking. But you know that story about the... it was like a girl who she was like transsexual and like she was like a guy.
Boys Don't Cry.
Yeah,
with,
I always
Hilary
thought,
Swank.
Yeah, and I always thought that this was like a different movie of that same story, because I think that's a true story.
Yeah, I believe it is. What was it? Brandon? I can't remember the character's name. That's a great movie though. Boys Don't Cry.
Yeah. And I'd never seen that movie either, so I'm like, oh, this must be like the same thing, just because Tilda Swinton just, I don't know. I don't know anything about this movie. This movie or that movie. I was like, this is what this is. Did they come out at the same time or no?
No.
Everyone's like...
Boys Don't Cry is a little older, maybe the 90s.
90s?
Like 90s, 98, 90s.
This is like mid-2000s?
This is like 2010, 2011.
2010.
So yeah, I don't know. I was really impressed with it. And,
it was really good.
Heard things about it, but I tried to avoid reading any reviews or anything because I hadn't seen it. But highly recommended. Very, very good stuff.
It was like the third Tilda Swinton movie I'd seen this year.
Yeah, we watched Suspiria.
Suspiria.
And what was the other one? She's at Doctor Strange.
She's in Doctor Strange.
That was last year, though. Maybe 2 years ago.
I don't remember. It's all blurred.
It all blurs together.
Yeah.
But we're good.
Yeah.
Every day it's getting closer, going faster than a roller coaster. Love like yours will surely come my way. You just have to rock him a little bit.
Did you say mommy?
No.
Shouldn't he be talking by now?
I wouldn't worry about it.
Ball?
No.
He's just a boy. Just a sweet little boy.
Just because you're used to something doesn't mean you like it. You're used to me.
Great shot, Kevin. You're a natural. First he cries too much, then he's too quiet. And you see it as some kind of personal vendetta?
You think I'm exaggerating?
Listen, buddy, it's easy to misunderstand when you hear it out of context.
Why would I not know the context?
Franklin, pick up the phone.
He's just a sweet little...
Pick up the phone.
Just a sweet little boy. That's what boys do.
Okay, guys, the next one is from Arrow Video, and it's directed by Takashi Miike, and it is Terra Formars. This actually has a bunch of other stuff about it before the movie was made, so why don't you take it away?
It's based off a manga and an anime, which I have not read, but now I went to after watching that movie because it was really fun.
So saying that, that's always one thing with these movies that are based on like other stuff. People are like, it sucks, but yada yada yada. Like, well, I am not familiar with that, so I can base it just on the movie.
Right. Yeah.
This is a crazy movie. It takes place in a futuristic sci-fi world, which is something that I know you enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
These criminals are handpicked, and basically they're going to be terminated. So they're given pretty much a horrible set of circumstances they have to follow. They're supposed to go to Mars because we've destroyed this planet and plant trees and whatnot and eliminate these cockroaches that are on the... They've started to colonize Mars. They planted a bunch of trees. What came with it were nasty cockroaches. They want the cockroaches wiped out of the planet. That's their job. All these criminals come from different walks of life. There's a serial killer. There's some smugglers. There's some Yakuza. And there's like a disgruntled, like kind of a fall from grace military sergeant. Mm-hmm. So all these people they land on Mars, and they start to colonize it, and when they're walking around, this isn't a twist, but it was a twist for me because I had no clue what was going on. They immediately walk into this giant roach man who is very silent and very creepy, and he is CGI, but he looks really good. I think practical and CGI. The first time I saw him, I was like, what is that? What the hell is that thing? And these things turn out to be violent, and it's not exactly what's going on. We get into this crazy world where they were told something that's completely inaccurate. They have been injected with Earth bug DNA, so they all have these special powers that they have to inject themselves with and release so they can fight the Roachmen. But there's twists and turns and crazy powers and cool characters, and I don't want to spoil too much else, but do you have anything else to say about this one?
I think it was really good.
Yeah.
Enough that I wanted to read the manga, but my friend told me that the manga's unfinished. Like the director or the author took a rest because I think that there's how the movie ends. There's a whole lot more.
Oh yeah.
After that, I thought the cockroaches were really cool.
They were awesome.
I liked the way they looked. They looked like the tick mixed with like I don't know. They're
a cockroach.
A cockroach. Yeah. But I mean, like the tick, like, you know...
It looks just like the tick.
Like the tick. What's his name? Patrick Warburton?
Yeah,
the cartoon?
The cartoon, yeah. The tick.
He was fun.
There's tons of them.
Oh, yeah, tons of them.
And
hundreds.
There's CGI, but after a while you get used to it, and some of it looks to be mixed with practical.
Are they all CGI? Or
I think there's some practical things going on.
Because they looked very suit-like.
They did, but with maybe CGI enhancements. But all the characters have different powers, and when it's fun to realize what they're going to turn into.
Right.
And some of the characters have powers that lead to twists later on, and characters come back you don't expect to, and everybody is like, nobody is doing really what they're supposed. Everybody has twists and turns, and it's really kind of like almost like a spy thing at points too. But
I will say I was let down that there are some characters you don't get to see their powers.
Yeah, but that was a statement, I think, on that.
Yeah.
And what they did, and they said we don't know why.
Yeah.
And that's funny. They do kill off a lot of characters right off the bat, which is kind of like Aliens to me in the very beginning of Aliens. Like, people just start dropping like flies.
Literally,
dropping like cockroaches. But, terrible pun. But the action's good, and I enjoyed it, and I was captivated. And it's a pretty long movie. It's like 2 hours long.
Yeah, but I feel like at no point does it get really boring.
And it's scary at first.
It
like,
is.
You're like, what are they going to do? How are they going to win? And they keep doing that deal where they the cockroaches will do something ridiculous, and you're like, they can't win. And then they'll pull away out of this.
Yeah.
But it gets ridiculous in the movie.
Yeah, it goes like typical shonen, oh, he's at this level, and we got up here, and then this happened, and it's like, okay, I get it. All right, but no, it's really fun. It has Yamapi in it, and I like Yamapi.
Which one? Is he the main character?
He's Jin. He's the locust, grasshopper.
Yeah, he's one of the best characters.
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
really liked him. He's in a few other movies I've seen. The punching one.
The punching one?
It's Joe. Boxer Joe.
Boxer Joe, punching one.
He punches,
But I was like, what, Fist of the North Star? You said punching one.
I wish he was in Fist of the North Star.
I think that's like an actual American movie.
Is it really?
Yeah, the movie, the live action, Fist of the North Star.
I don't know. I don't know.
But this one was a lot of fun. I was kind of surprised by it. And Miike is one of those directors that can do anything. That's what's cool about Takashi Miike. He can do so many different kind of movies, and they feel like him to an extent, but they don't. You know what I mean? Like, it takes a while. Some directors, I can tell, is their style in their movie.
Mm-hmm.
Him, I can, like, they're so different, which is not an insult to me. For him. For others, it would be. Like, if you say a director doesn't have a certain style, there is a style to it, but I could never pinpoint one exactly. They're all batshit crazy and completely different at the same time, which is really cool in itself. But yeah, I mean, I started out not caring for his movies, to be honest. And over time, yeah, and I saw some of his more serious stuff, and I was like, wow, 13 Assassins is excellent, and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And Audition was excellent, and it's just, he really grew on me, and everything I've seen so far has been really good. This one, I know it's got some bad reviews, but I don't really understand why. I mean, yes, the CGI is not great always, but it has this comic style that they can get away with it. It feels right in it.
It's very high energy, and even if with the CGI present, like, it doesn't need to be practical. Not in this kind of movie.
I do prefer practical effects.
I do.
And it is. Let's leave it on the note that says it's the best Killer Roachman movie since Mimic.
I would agree. Mimic is slightly better.
I love Mimic.
I do love Mimic.
But that's a hated movie too. How many Killer Roachman movies are there? There's Mimic, The Nest, and this.
Does The Brood have roaches? Is that a movie?
No.
That's Albert Reed with little freaking trolls.
The little ghouls. Eunuch kids that have no genitals and they're rage babies. Yeah. Love The Brood. But no. The Brood you're thinking of are from X-Men, those space aliens.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah. But that's it for Terraformers, and we talked about X-Men for no apparent reason. But yeah, I would say check it out. The special features on here, there's like an hour and a half making of, like 2 hour making of, and some cast interviews and whatnot. But interesting characters, fun fights, just cool stuff. If you like monsters and you like sci-fi, it's well worth checking out. And you get a chance to look at the actual Earth, too, in the sci-fi world and the futuristic stuff.
Yeah.
And the bad guy is, typical futuristic douchebag.
Yeah, and I would say it does kind of end on a cliffhanger.
Yeah, you want more.
Yeah, you want more. I don't know if they're ever going to make more.
I don't know.
I'd like to see it.
It'll probably be 10 times cheaper if they do.
I mean,
But that's Terraformers.
Yeah. Terraformars.
Looking back, you'll be sad.
You're finished.
Okay, the next one is the VHS Voyage, and it's from 1983, and this is a Vestron video release. This is Eyes of Fire. Look how sun-faded that was. I do not remember where I got this release. But yeah, Eyes of Fire. You know what? I've had this for years. It always interested me. I know always a lot of people enjoyed the movie, but I had never actually popped it in and watched it. And I decided to finally put it in the VHS Voyage because Shockwave's host, Elric Kane, always talks about this movie. He's always like, Eyes of Fire, Eyes of Fire. And I think Rebecca McKendry does too on Shockwaves. I love that podcast, by the way. But so yeah, I was like, all right, let's put this in. And they always compared it to stuff like The Witch, like a past witch. And I could really see that. This is a weird movie. It's definitely on a budget in 1983. And it's a period piece, horror movie, supernatural horror movie, which is very odd. It also feels like The Ritual to me, which kind of surprised me. The newer one, The Ritual. So we have this thing going on where this they're going to hang this woman for something, this family, because she is, sleeping with this priest, this strange kind of priest when her husband has been gone for a long time. He's like a trapper hunter. And something weird happens where the priest is saved by all the people. The rope breaks under mysterious circumstances. This girl seems to have some powers who's with him, and they're kind of banished from the town. They tie everybody up. They know that when they get the upper hand, and decide to steal a lot of the equipment and to just set forth going down the river on it. They kind of cross over into French country, and there's Native Americans around. They know that, and they end up kind of going into this dead land, this land they're not supposed to go into. It has these weird, strange, pagan kind of, I wouldn't want to call them Native Americans. They keep calling them Indians in the movie, but they're not. They are weird and strange kind of tribe. That's not really a tribe. It's definitely supernatural and evil, and involves kind of like tree spirits and things like that. Really weird. But the father of the girl and the husband of the woman who is sleeping with the priest comes back, and he decides to go look for them. He's like this big-time trapper hunter guy. One of the best characters in the movie. The people start to have, obviously, right off the bat, they have trouble with Native Americans and whatnot, and start to have weird things falling apart. And I like this one because the priest starts so sure of himself, and he actually has no powers. He never does anything good. The one who's doing everything for him is this strange girl that doesn't talk much, that has the powers, that has this protection over the group from the evil spirits. And he doesn't ever do anything, and as it gets worse and worse and worse, you see him kind of crumble and become less and less power. And that's a nice character arc for him. But it has some great visuals, especially the special effects are really creepy, and the things coming out of the trees are very, very weird, and it's like this weird kind of monster or spiritual monster thing that you've never really seen in a movie before. You have, but it's never been done quite like this. Also, I want to shout out to the Guardian, maybe, like, is the tree lady in that, but they're not necessarily that at all. And it's just a weird movie, and it feels like at times like this super dark and really well acted, and not super well acted, but well made kind of period piece horror movie, and then it will get like kind of cheesy and fantasy like, or it almost feels like a kid's Disney movie or something like that. It's a strange movie, and the ending's pretty bad. Like the very, very ending, like it's not over yet. You're like, stop it. But there's some narration in here. Like the whole movie is these two kids telling, or this teenager and this kid telling the story to these French officers that found them. And that's the whole outline of the story. So it's like, did they decide to do that narration at the end that the movie didn't completely work? Or did they decide to just have that the whole time? I'd really be interested in seeing that or hearing about it, because it looks like it's great on location, and where they shot looks great, and the special effects are great, and the story is unique enough. And I'd like to see some more in-depth stuff about it. It's a super weird movie. If you can find it, it's on YouTube if you want to check it out. But it's never had a Blu-ray release, and it's never had a stateside DVD release or even a Europe DVD release. I think there's a Thailand DVD, but it's got a Thai DVD, but I don't think it particularly looks great. But it has some really creepy moments where like one of the people decides to give up and go out in there, and the idea of there's this young child that comes in, and they like kind of take him in, but he's evil, and this one girl sees him. Every time she looks at him, and sees this like blackened like tree face. Just creepy stuff like that all around. Weird movie, and just feels kind of desolate and hopeless at times. It's just totally, it's kind of strange all over the place, but it's definitely interesting for sure.
What are you bringing us here for?
It was a time of witchcraft, of hangings, of horror, of magic. They were outcasts on a desperate voyage to the promised land. What they found was a terrifying world.
Land.
Lost in a forest far from home, in a valley none would enter.
That tree says that this valley is where the lost blood gathers. It's the home of the devil.
The secret is sleeping in the trees.
Okay, the last one is, I know what you're thinking, geez, get over with these. It is the Pick a Movie, and they picked Karaoke Terror from Synapse Films. This is a 2003 Japanese film. Boy, oh boy, was I happy with this movie. First and foremost, it's a revenge movie. It's super strange. It's a karaoke movie. Two groups of karaoke people fighting. This is a weird one. We have this group of young boys, 5 young men. They're like, I guess, college aged. They're working though, probably early 20s, and they do karaoke for fun. But they make this whole big extravagant thing where they dress up in these weird outfits and almost sometimes cross dress and sing. And one of them is a very violent, strange person and obviously has some problems. And there's also a group of these 4 or 5 women that get together. They all have the same first name. They've all middle-aged and they've all been divorced. And it kind of was like get together and they became friends and they go to karaoke and pick up men together. What happens is these young men, one of them is a nutcase. He sexually harasses this woman and she gets angry and pushes him away, obviously. And he decides to kill her. You realize this guy's not right on the beginning. He kills her, not realizing who she is, doesn't care who she is, goes back and tells her his friends. His friends seem to think it's funny. The karaoke people, the women start to look into it. They see these people going to the murder scene and laughing about it, and they overhear them say who did it, and they decide to take revenge. This is the catalyst, basically, when they decide to take revenge, or actually the first murder would be the catalyst. And basically what happens is we have this revenge story of these people going after each other and constantly upping the ante. It almost becomes satirical in the point of, you know, how if you decide to get revenge, you better save that last bullet for yourself. This is that times 100. So we keep going. At first, it's just, you know, he murders her, they shoot this guy, and then they decide to do something a little bit more dramatic, and then besides that, we start to get ridiculous and insane. And there's some nice set pieces, well, not even a set piece, but there's this great scene involving some explosions, not going to spoil too much, but by the end of the movie, it gets so insane, and it's basically making a statement that says, you know, hate or revenge or something will eat us all. I don't know. It could just be satirical, and I think a lot of it is, but it's very funny at times, too. It has this dark comedy to it that's very great. There's a great character in this movie where they go to get the illegal gun originally, the young man, and they say, do you have a gun? And he does the same thing every time. Well, that's over there, like the cooking materials over there. And then they ask him for a gun, and he said, do you have it? Like, yes. What's it for? And then they tell him it's for these women, and he's like, what kind of women? And they start telling more about him, and he realizes it's middle-aged women, and they start telling, and he's like, oh, they're the kind. And they like finish a sentence for him, and every time he gets so mad, he has to hit something. And he's like, ah, it's so funny, it's so well done, and it's so ridiculous and over the top, and that, but fitting. It feels real, and he's just like, oh, they're kind of it makes me so mad. I hate middle-aged women. And you're like, that guy's working through some issues, but it's very funny, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty great, and the way it ends, you're just like, yes. Yeah, it would do that, I guess, right? You can't go much bigger than what happened before unless you do that. But really liked it. I loved it, actually. Karaoke Terror. Good stuff. There's no Blu-ray in the stateside, but maybe Synapse will release a Blu-ray. There's a DVD. Looks pretty good. Enjoyable. Cool stuff.
一つの歯車の狂いが人生に大きな転機を呼び起こす。
どうしたら自分を捨てられるんですか？どうしたらおばさんのように何も考えずに生きられるようになるんですか？
許せないわね。許せない。とうとう敵を取ったよ。月が
僕たちの仲間がおばさんに殺されたんです。おばさんといっても親戚ではなく。
どんなおばさんだ？リンダリンダリンダリンダリンダリンダリンダ。
あなたに抱かれて私はどうして私たちがバカにされなきゃいけないの？
僕たちは復讐しなければいけないんです。
あなたまさか私を見てお母さん思い出すなんて言うんじゃないでしょうね。あ、
ピップエレキ版ですね。
では皆さんごきげんよう。
二人でドアを閉めて二人で名前
原爆あります？
あるけどどうすんの？
Okay, guys, let's do the pick a movie drawing. Who do we got? We got Tempo Tapas, who always comments. Good guy. Thank you very much. Let me know what you want me to check out. Get that out of there. All right, I guess we're going to hop into some questions. Nick Mua has some questions. He says, would you ever direct a film knowing you won't have final cut? Depends how much they're paying me, depends who's producing it and who's going to have final cut on it, and it depends what the movie was about, you know? I mean, like, if it's something that somebody else might have a better grasp on, I might let. It all depends, variations. But if they were like, we're not paying you, but or something like low pay, I probably wouldn't if it was something I was really attached to. It's all circumstantial, to be honest. Could you make a movie about something that frightens or disgusts you? Yeah, I could. But if it was like, make a documentary about, you know, sharing needles in the drug culture, I'd be like, I don't think I can get that close to that because that terrifies me to a certain aspect where my life's in danger. And not just my life, any of my partners later on in life, or like, as I get married, you don't want to ruin that person's life too if you accidentally get pricked by a needle or something. I know that kind of stuff just like freaks me out. So if it was a documentary where I had to be deep down in it, but I know you should do your research on a movie, but you know, I could do the research safely from my home. I wouldn't be afraid to make a movie about something like that, or, you know, losing your memory or something like that. That's also terrifies me. So I wouldn't be afraid to make a movie about that. I would actually embrace that. But if it came to like being down in it, like making the documentary, I wouldn't do that. How much backstory is too much in a film? When it's boring, when it becomes boring. I mean, not if the movie never bores you or doesn't like suck or just it fits. I mean, too much can't. It's never. You know, I think there's sometimes it's too much in certain movies. Like Ronan the Accuser in Guardians of the Galaxy for a Marvel movie, I thought that's enough backstory. I know who he is. I know what he wants. And that's great. I love that. You know, Skeletor too in the Master Universe. I know who he is. I know what he wants. I know what his motives are. That's good enough sometimes. When you dive too much backstory in it, it's too much. But I think that the person who makes it should know the backstory, know the rich mythology, and I think some of it should bleed through and make the person watching want to know more. But they don't necessarily need to know more, if that makes sense. Why do you think studios are still afraid to label films they release as horror? They often go for psychological thriller with horror elements. Is horror still considered a dirty word? I would say at the Oscars it is. Maybe that mold will be broken. If it's a really great movie, they don't want to call it a horror movie because they don't want to ruin the chance of it winning an award. If you could shoot a film in another country, where would you like to shoot it? Good question. Do I want like just to get a free vacation out of it? Like, hey, let's go shoot in the Bahamas or something like that. The Bahamas is not somewhere place I'd pick. A movie where I could shoot something in a different country that looks beautiful or something like that. I don't know. It depends what kind of movie I was making. If I was making like a jungle adventure movie, I'd want to go to the jungle, but the jungle would be miserable. My temperament, I would just be screaming and yelling all the damn time. So I don't know. It all depends. I would go to a location if it fit perfect for a movie, but you know, Europe, somewhere cool in Europe, lots of places, you know, that fit perfectly would be awesome. Okay, and then we have some answers to last week's question. I asked if you guys ever boycotted a movie or a label because their practices outside the film industry. Nick Moo has some questions from last week, which was, what do you guys think the best studio who has the best back catalog of horror movies, which studio? Nick Moo says, I feel like New Line Cinema has some pretty decent track record, releasing bone-chilling films like Texas Chainsaw, Nightmare on Elm Street, Seven Needful Things, and some not so good ones, Freddy's Dead. But my favorite is without a doubt Hammer, horror film production. So many delicious classics. The Mummy, Sir Christopher was excellent in it. Vampire Circus, The Nanny, Wakewood, The Woman in Black. Hammer has in the past and still continues to bring flair, style, and dignity to the horror genre. Okay. And he says, I might be wrong, but I don't believe in boycotting. I've disliked labels and studios before, for sure, but who am I to try to stop others from seeing something just because I have a problem with it? Art is often collaborative. I don't believe it is fair to punish many for the sins of a few. I do agree with that sentiment. He said, case in point, Rosemary's Baby, stellar piece of horror drama. Yes, what Roman Polanski did is very wrong, but Paramount or Mia Farrow or others involved with the film shouldn't be yelled at shouldn't be held... or this is kind of weirdly put, for the mistakes of one man. Brian Nielsen, congratulations on almost 2 years of posting without missing a single week. Thank you. That's impressive, but throttle it down, Jack, and you won't get sick so much. Maybe. Regarding your crush of the week, I despise Roman Polanski. I hate to word it this way, but I have much more respect for Salva because he at least was man enough to do his time. He didn't bitch out and run to Europe. That's some controversial statements right there. Peek and Boo, answer to the question of the week. I might have boycott sometimes. Wait, this won't be popular, but I stay away from Del Toro and Tarantino. I'm okay with angry comments my way. I did like the Mimic from Del Toro in 97, though. I know he's a huge fan, so he says of H.P. Lovecraft, but never seems to do movies on those stories. Or I might have missed them. Early Tarantino was too much stealing from other movies. Sure, I can understand some culture because I'm letting it be. No, I don't think. I think you understood the question. I meant boycotting because their practices outside of the film industry. And man, you really should boycott those two. Those movies they both make great movies. That's a strange reason to not watch their movies, I think. But hey, to each their own. Viper Rose 1978 boycotted Jeepers Creepers quite a while ago. Pretty much the only one. I didn't watch the new Jeepers Creepers. I just was like, looks like crap. I just don't. Victor Salva gives me the creeps, okay? I know lots of other guys did it and bad too, but just I still see like the pictures of him and then just like he's got such a bad rep and he got a slap on the wrist and he still got to continue to work with children after what he did. So it's just like, and I also, I don't know if it's true, but people are like, he's still the same slime ball. He's got away with it. So I don't know. Chris Rivers, I've never boycotted someone's films. I just don't get that mentality. Films require hard work from a lot of different people, and I can't see the point of ignoring that hard work because of one person involved with the production. As for labels, I've avoided ordering directly from Code Red for a while because of the poor packaging that resulted in damaged products, and from Shout Factory recently because their price increases. Get better, man. Thank you. Yeah, I actually got a discount code from Shout for 5% off, and actually I put it towards it and got a free shipping, and they all came early, which is great, which they stopped doing. So, I was a little confused by their price hike, but I can understand some of it, but a lot of it was no special features on Man Bites Dog except a commentary, and it's $25. That's just too much for me. I'll wait till it goes down or I won't get it. But I understand, and Code Red, I've never actually had a problem with ordering from them, but I know a lot of people have, and a lot of people I know were genuinely upset about it, and I can see why. I don't try to boycott movies, like I said, but if I hear it's bad and it's got Jeepers Creepers 3 or 2.5 or whatever it is, and it's got that stigma behind it, it's like, I don't need to see that. But yeah, I guess we're going to go into the question of the week. You know what? I always shout out a lot of podcasts. So what is your favorite podcast out there? I love stuff give me some recommendation. Tell me your favorite podcast. I love stuff like Pure Cinema, Shockwaves, 22 Shots of Moods and Horror, Exploding Heads, Just the Disc, The Movies That Made Me. There's tons of good ones out there. So what's your favorite podcast? It doesn't have to be movie related. It could be like Last Podcast on the Left, which I also like. It could be anything. So what is your favorite podcast? Let me know. I guess we are going to hop into the update. Okay, this one's kind of a doozy too, so let's get into this. First, some Warner Archive from their sale. Brewster McCloud. Heard about this on the Pure Cinema or Just the Disc podcast. Can't remember. Brian Sauer, fan of it. Robert Altman. Can't beat that. And you can't beat it for $11 free shipping. Seems to have a nice cast. About cops. Looks very weird. Very fun. Very different. Then we have The Thing from Another World, produced by Howard Hawks. Yep. I've actually never seen this. I know that's terrible, right? I love Carpenter's Thing. I adore it. Yeah, so it's about time. Warner Archive. I'm looking forward to checking that one out big time. Then we have Flight of the Dragons. Oop, bumped the camera there. Flight of the Dragons. This is an animated movie. Look cool. Was James Earl Jones do a voice in this one? Again, I think I heard Brian Sauer talking about this one. Great podcast, Just a Disc. Or Pure Cinema, he's on both. But yeah. And then we have The Swarm. This is one of these disaster deals, you know what I mean? Big old, star-studded cast being tormented by something like Volcano or Towering Inferno. Not Volcano, Towering Inferno, Earthquake, stuff like that. But yeah, I had to grab this one. I heard it's super long. It's about a swarm of bees or wasps. I think it's bees. But look, it's got Ben Johnson in it. The cast in this is nonsense. Michael Caine. So many people in this movie. Yeah, but The Swarm. And then we got Wait Until Dark with Audrey Hepburn, Alan Arkin, and Richard Crenna. Never seen this one. Heard good things about it. have the DVD. Never had a chance to actually watch it. But, yeah. Sorry about that. I'm sure it's pretty good. And then we have Looker. Albert Finney, James Coburn. Science movie, like science horror deal. Looks cool. Not seen this one either. Again, Warner Archive, when they have their sale, you got to jump on it. Get as many as you can. We got a couple from Scream Factory coming up. We got Grave of the Vampire. Man, this looked too weird to pass up. Father and son related by blood. Everyone's blood. Come on now. This looks so weird. It's PG, but the plot, I was like, it sounded so perverse. I had to order it. I was like, this just sounds too weird for its own damn good. I gotta have it. And then we got another one that is definitely too weird for its own damn good. The Manitou. Directed by, who is this? William Girdler. His last movie, I believe. Burgess Meredith, Tony Curtis. Yeah, this movie's weird. It's so crazy. I'm glad it's on Blu-ray. I don't even know if I really like this one. It's just one of those movies that's just so out there that I was like, I gotta have it. The Manitou. Weird little Native American small person shaman monster. I don't know. They don't either. Then we got some from the Fries. We have Three Brothers from Arrow Academy. It's a good price on this. I've not seen this movie. But yeah. We have The Assassin, again from Arrow Academy. Good price again. Grab this. I don't know much about these Arrow Academies, not all of them, but yeah, heard good things. Oh, I just realized this case is broken. Ooh, that's not good. Cinema Paradiso. I might have to... that sucks, doesn't it? You see in live, like, disappointment right on there. Maybe if I have an Arrow replacement case somewhere, I can replace it. But that just bums me out, guys. My day's ruined. But anyways, yeah. It was a good price. This is the first Arrow Academy release. I've heard lots about this one, actually. Heard good stuff. But then we have Property is No Longer a Thief. Or is no longer a theft. There we go. Sorry. Yeah. I think that Daria Nicolodi is in this. Dario Argento's wife at one point. So, yeah. And some cheapies I got. Like a record exchange or something. The Survivalist. Oh, $2. Couldn't pass it up. Broken Arrow. $3. I actually like this one. A John Woo movie. Christian Slater. John Travolta. Bob Gutton has a really great scene in this. And the way Bob Gutton bites it in this is a really fun moment for John Travolta. As Above, So Below. Good price on this one as well. Not seen it. I had the DVD, but the Blu-ray was a good price. Hear mixed things about this for sure. Then we have Big Jake, John Wayne. Brand new. It was like $5. Grabbed it. Well, it's still sealed. So yeah, I've seen parts of this on television. Not sure if I ever saw the whole thing, but like John Wayne, so why not? And this one, No Way Back. Again, pretty cheap. Russell Crowe. Never heard of this movie. Helen Slater from, what is that one? Legend of Billie Jean. I've never heard of this movie, so yeah, No Way Back. And I guess back to the video, guys. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. And as always, you guys have a good one.